Hi, this is Joe again with another video. For the sake of this video, well, this particular video is going to be kind of like an annual tradition with me, and it's to discuss the Baseball Hall of Fame class, which the election was came out just yesterday. So during this, obviously during a day later after the announcement came down, and the Hall of Fame class, of the Baseball Hall of Fame class of 2019 has now been officially said, so finished, so done with. And of course, there was a big deal about one of the inductees, which I'm going to get into later. Well, I'm going to start talking about the two players who was voted in last December on the Veterans Committee ballot, and there were at least one guy you definitely should consider. He should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, and that was Lee Smith, who was a relief pitcher who had until Trevor Hoffman, and then of course obviously who was gone last year, and this year's Hall of Fame when Mariano Rivera came along. Lee Smith had the all-time record of saves for years before and he was, I think he retired by the time Rivera started his career, and of course, and Trevor Hoffman. Lee Smith was still playing when Trevor Hoffman first came into the major leagues as a member of the Florida Marlins in the first team, actually, in '93. But Lee Smith should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, because it was definitely one of the best closers, and it was still back in the time where a closer pitched more than one inning, which we're going to get into with Rivera in a minute. But he sometimes he used to pitch like 2 or 3 innings in a game. At least he came out of the mold of Goose Gossage, who is also in the Hall of Fame. He used to pitch 2, 3, or even sometimes 4 innings in a game, and he would get the save. That's what Lee Smith used to do, and him playing in mostly day games in Wrigley Field with the shadows and with a high fastball they would throw. And his size, he was a very tall guy. I think he had to be about 6'5", 6'6". He was very intimidating and he was one of the best closers of all time. And he should have been recognized a hell of a long time ago, in my opinion. The other player who was voted in by the Veterans Committee was Howard Baines, the longtime DH. When he played for other teams, he played for the Orioles as well, but he mostly famous for playing on the Chicago White Sox. And he was mostly the DH, practically throughout his career, practically. And the same thing with Edgar Martinez, which I was going to get into in a minute. And he really is the first real DH to be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And some people would say, "Well, but Frank Thomas." And I said, "Well, Frank Thomas spent half of his career playing first base, and so he played roughly half of his career at first base, and the other half as a DH for when he played for the White Sox, ironically the same team. But at least Frank Thomas been a good, especially when he won the 2 MVPs in back-to-back years. He was a first baseman, not a DH. So I consider him more of a first baseman than a DH. But that's my opinion for what it's worth. Now I'll get to the Baseball Writers ballot, which was just announced last night. The first player, of course, that was announced was Edgar Martinez, who was another lifelong DH because he never really played in position. When Edgar Martinez first came up with Seattle, he suffered. He had like bad leg injuries. I think it was his hamstring pull. It took him like a couple of years, like at least a year and a half or 2 years to get back into shape. And it was found out that it was a good idea for him not to play the field anymore, but he was still able to hit well. So since he was still able to hit well, they made him the permanent DH of Seattle, and he played with Seattle for the rest of his career. And the most famous hit he ever got was in 1995 in Game 5 of the divisional round or the first round of the playoffs against the Yankees, when he got a famous base hit, knocked to Ken Griffey Jr. to win the first ever divisional playoffs against, ironically, the Yankees. So he got in, and he felt he deserved it a while ago. a long time ago with Martinez. And of course, he was other than him and Harold Baines, except for Edgar Martinez and Harold Baines, are the two hitters, and that inducted to the Hall of Fame. I'm talking about non-pitchers. I should say non-pitchers. Everybody else who's going in this year, this July in Cooperstown, are all pitchers, except for Edgar Martinez and Baines. Now, of course, not going to the pitchers. One of the other pitchers who was inducted in the first year of his ballot was Roy Halladay, formerly of the Toronto Blue Jays, which he won a Cy Young and threw a perfect game there, and a Cy Young with the Phillies, and he threw, I think he threw like about 3 no-hitters in a lifetime. One was a perfect game, and 2 were just regular no-hitters, but one of his no-hitters was unique. He became the first pitcher since Nolan Ryan to throw 2 no-hitters in the same season. But the irony is for Halladay is that his second no-hitter came in the first game of the divisional playoff round for the Phillies. And it was the first ever. I know people are going to call me out on this and say, what about Don Lawson, who threw a perfect game in the World Series? Well, I'm counting the playoffs and the World Series different. Now, people say, that was the second no-hitter in playoff baseball, postseason baseball. I count the World Series different. I don't count it as the second no-hitter in postseason baseball. I count it as the first no-hitter ever in the playoffs, which is exactly what it was. And not only was it the first no-hitter, but it was also happened in the first game of the playoffs with the Phillies. And I remember seeing that game and said, wow, history was made. And unfortunately, Roy Halladay died in a plane crash, and I was surprised that there is a rule in the I don't know if the Hall of Fame actually got rid of this rule, but if a player dies before they pass away, Roy Halladay was already retired already. But I'm talking about he was already retired when he passed away. But if a player dies before they reach the 5 years being retired, they could make a pass a waiver to allow Halladay to be on the ballot for last year, for 2018. And because he died before he was retired for 5 years. So I figured, because they did that with Roberto Clemente, and they also did it with Lou Gehrig. They passed away and they put them in before they were retired for 5 years. Because as soon as Gehrig retired with ALS, they put him into the Hall of Fame in 1939. They did that. And they did the same thing with Clemente, because he died in a plane crash in, I think it was New Year's Eve in 1972. And in 1973, he was still. I mean, if he hadn't died, I'm sure he would have played another year or two in the major leagues, at least another year or two. But since he didn't get a chance to formally retire because he died in a plane crash, just like Roy Halladay, they gave him a signed off for him to put him on the ballot the very next year, which would be 1973 ballot, and he got into the Hall of Fame in 1973. They could have done the same thing with Roy Halladay, put him on the ballot for 2018, and they didn't do it because it's only 1 year. We could wait for him to when he's officially eligible in 2019 to put him in. So that's what they did. Now, of course, comes the big, especially for all you dumb Yankee fans out there. You think you forgot about Rivera by then. I'm talking about Mariano Rivera being the last guy to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And I think I'm also forgetting. It was actually Martinez. Mike Messina. I forgot about Mike Messina. Mike Messina getting into the Hall of Fame as well. And it's about time that he got in, because he was a borderline Hall of Famer. He did barely get in. I think he got like 77 or 78% on the ballot, and you need 75% to get in. The thing with Messina is he has the same number of wins as Jim Palmer. I think Jim Palmer actually got 268 wins. So Messina actually has 2 more wins than Jim Palmer did in his entire career. And Palmer's in the Hall of Fame. And they kept Messina out, which is, it's ridiculous. I mean, both started in the same organization, the Orioles. And I think it'd be funny if Messina gets elected to the Hall of Fame, goes in as an Oriole, instead of as a stupid Yankee. But now it comes to the crux. I'm talking about, and I know I mentioned earlier, but I forgot about Messina, that Mariano Rivera is going into the Hall of Fame. And he becomes the first player ever, since the first Rolling Stone in 1936, to get 100% of the ballot. Now, me, that's a little bit of controversial. Because of the fact that there are certain players in the Hall of Fame, since the first Rolling Stone in 1936, who deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame with 100% of the ballot, and they didn't get 100% of the ballot for various reasons, which I'm going to talk about in this video. But to me, I know a lot of Yankee fans are going to be pissed off when I say this, but the debate is not whether or not Rivera should be in the Hall of Fame. To me, that's not a debate. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest and the greatest relief pitcher of all time. He has one of the lowest ERAs for a pitcher who appeared in the playoffs and World Series, because they combine both the World Series stat. Like I mentioned earlier, they should not count the playoffs and the World Series together, in my opinion. For the last, let's say, 20 years or so, that's 25 years or so, they combine both. What you did in the playoffs and the World Series together. I don't think that's right. But they combined all the stats for Rivera in the playoffs and World Series for Rivera, and he has a 0.70 ERA in the playoffs and World Series combined. And plus all the saves, all the games that he ended. He has 652 saves, which is the all-time record, breaking Trevor Hoffman's record. And Trevor Hoffman could have gone in last year in the Hall of Fame, and Lee Smith. I mean, those are the top 3 in saves. And now, finally, all 3 are in the Hall of Fame, because Lee Smith finally got in this year with the Veterans Committee. But here's the thing. I do not think that Mariano Rivera should have been the first player getting 100% of the ballot. I don't think he should have. Because there are players. Because true, nowadays people say, "Oh, let's finally end the stupid thing, and vote, get a player in with 100% of the ballot." Because I know how many old crusty sports writers are still alive or still active, who still fill out the ballots every year. Because it used to be, if you ever were a sports writer, if you were ever a baseball writer, you still get a vote. Even long after you retired, you would get a ballot. But I think nowadays they changed the rules on that. Now it has to be sports writers who are still currently active, and we're currently writing for a newspaper or a website. If it's a digital newspaper, whatever, you still get they get votes. So those who are active in the Baseball Writers Association of America. But that guys who have been retired, let's say 20 or 30 years, let's say, who are not currently active as baseball writers, they're not getting votes. They took those votes away from those guys. So, I mean, at least I believe they did. So those guys don't get votes. But guys who currently vote say, "Oh, I'm talking about the older guys. I'm talking about guys who are in the 60s, 70s, and 80s who are voting. Say, oh, Babe Ruth didn't get 100% of the ballot. I'm going to vote for, to break that streak. That's because Rivera is the greatest reliever of all time, or because he pitched for the Yankees. He won 5 championships in his career, 4 and 5 years. Babe Ruth didn't get 100% of the ballot. Rivera shouldn't. I kind of feel that way too. I mean, there are guys, and the reason why certain guys who should have gone 100% on the ballot didn't is because there have been sports fighters over the years who refused. This is going back since the first voting in 1936, who held grudges against certain players for various reasons. Like, for example, for Babe Ruth, now the sports fighters wouldn't vote for Babe Ruth because he divorced his first wife. Well, not really divorced, but separated from his first wife. He was a womanizer. He was a drunk. And he died at the age of 53 from throat cancer. Because he was a womanizer, he was a drunk, he was hungover a lot of times when he was over the park to play ball because caravanning around, he was partying around all night, and there were no night games back then when he played, and he had to get up to go to the ballpark and he was all hungover. And he was a womanizer and a drunk and everything else and a party guy, and because of all that stuff, there was like 11 votes, 11 sports writers who didn't vote for Babe Ruth because of all that. And same thing with Ty Cobb. Well, Ty Cobb wasn't a womanizer or a drunk, but Ty Cobb had a nasty reputation. He was claimed to be a racist, even though his parents were abolitionists back in the day. And he used to spike guys. He was mean. He was nasty. Even his own teammates hated him. So because of that, he didn't get the vote. And from 1936 to 1992, to when Tom Seaver got elected, he had the record for the highest percentage of the voting. And he also had players like Walter Johnson, who was like the Nolan Ryan of his day. He had the record for a long time till Nolan Ryan and Steve Carlton came along in 1983, who broke his strikeout record. And so he had the most strikeouts, he had most everything. He had the most shutouts, 110 shutouts, which is never going to come close to it for anybody anymore. He had the most complete games. He didn't get 100% of the ballot either. And I don't know why that was. Maybe because he played for too long and people took it out on him. Or maybe because he played for a lousy team his whole career with the Washington Senators. And he also had Cy Young. And because of Cy Young, he got an award named after him. He won 511 games. He stole more games than anybody in baseball history. And he didn't get 100%. I mean, those guys are the ones who should have gotten 100% of the ballot. Plus, there were also other guys like Willie Mays didn't get 100%. And the reason for that is because there were a lot of racist sports writers at that time who wouldn't vote for a black guy or a black player. Same thing with Hank Aaron. Same thing with Jackie Robinson. I mean, Jackie Robinson, he broke the color barrier. Back in 1947, he didn't get 100% because sports writers wouldn't vote for a black guy. Okay? Same thing with Hank Greenberg and Sandy Koufax, two of the greatest Jewish athletes of all time. Okay? Sports writers wouldn't vote for either one of them because they were Jewish. That's why they didn't get 100% of the ballot because of that. And believe it or not, Joe DiMaggio, even though he retired in 1951, he didn't get into 1955. Right? 40, I think he got in like 55 or 56. I have to look up what year he actually got in. But I think it was 55 or 56. But some people said, hey, he didn't get in the first ballot. I said, wait a minute, he got in 1956. That's 5 years after he retired. So I don't know where they're coming from that. I don't know where they were getting that. But sports writers wouldn't vote for DiMaggio because he was A, he was Italian, and B, because of all that stuff that he divorced Marilyn Monroe. He was jealous like crazy for her. And so because of those two things, people didn't vote for him because he was Italian. Right? Same thing with Tom Seaver. When Tom Seaver got in, there were also sports writers. In Tom Seaver's case, wouldn't vote for first-year players. They have this thing that some sports writers enacted their own rules and wouldn't vote for first-year players, and that was the case of Tom Seaver. Because when Tom Seaver got in 1992, I actually recorded an interview on WFAN here in New York with Jack Lang, who was, the late great Jack Lang, because he's since passed away. He was a longtime sports writer here in New York for the Long Island Press, and then when the Long Island Press went out of business, he wrote for the New York Daily News in New York City, and he covered the Mets from 1962 to when he died. So practically the whole career, pretty much his whole existence when he passed away, Jack Lang covered the Mets. And he was then the secretary of the Baseball Writers Association. So he used to call up all the players, congratulating them that they got into the Hall of Fame. So when he called up for Seaver, he did an interview on WFAN on the night that the announcement was formally made that Tom Seaver, along with Wally Fingers, the first pure reliever to get elected to the Hall of Fame in 1992, he told the story about this one sports writer, or Jack Lang did, told a story about this one sports writer named Dean McGowan who didn't vote for Seaver. And he was the first, and you should mention the fact that was the first ballot that came in to the Baseball Writers Association that didn't have Tom Seaver's name checked off on the ballot. So Jack Lang calls him up and said, Dean, he actually said, Dean, Jamie Lewis, why didn't you vote for Seaver? And he says, because I don't vote for first-year guys. He says, why? And so they get in and vote for guys who are waiting to get in. And sure enough, Jack Lang looked at his ballot, Dean McGowan voted for 10 players. Now, one player who was on the ballot for the first time. And because of stuff like that, that's why it was. I didn't think that Rivera would get 100% on the ballot, because you got sports writers who enact their own rules like this. I mean, that's not the rule. The baseball is that you have to. Oh, you cannot vote for a first-year guy. That's not a rule. There's no such rule that says you have to. That you cannot vote for a first-year player, or a player who was on the ballot for the first time, because of stuff like that. That's what cost players getting elected to the Hall of Fame. I mean, players who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame who don't get in because the sports writers enact their own rules, which is another joke. They said, hey, if you don't vote for an obvious, it's one thing if they vote for a guy who doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, like Rick Ankiel, who was on the ballot, didn't get a single vote, or guys who don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, like Darryl Strawberry or Dwight Gooden, for example. And I'm speaking as a Met fan, they didn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But to waste a vote on those two guys, on either one of those two guys, when you could have voted for a guy who was obvious, like Hank Aaron. If you don't vote for Hank Aaron, but vote for Dwight Gooden or Darryl Strawberry, you don't know baseball from a kumquat, or a grapefruit. I mean, not to vote for Hank Aaron, but you vote for these two guys because you have to be a Mets fan or something. And it's ridiculous. The sports writers make up their own rules. Well, now I guess because they got rid of a lot of these older guys who are not active anymore, who refuse to vote for first-year guys. Now you have a chance, because out of the last three elections, two players. I'm talking about 2016, not 2016. 2016 and 2019. In the last 4 years, two players got the highest, broke Tom Seaver's record, or passed Tom Seaver to get, the highest percentage of voting. Of course, no one's going to break the 100% mark. I mean, nobody. But when somebody gets it, which Rivera did, people. There's nobody's going to break that record. Nobody. And next year it's going to be the homosexual of the Yankees, Derek Jeter, is going to be eligible next year. I know people are going to say, oh, how can you call Derek Jeter a homosexual? Simple. Because since I'm a Met fan, all the dumb Yankee fans out there who are diehard Derek Jeter fans during the 20 years that he played, You all complain or make fun of Mike Piazza for being a homosexual, which he's not, because he dyed his hair blonde. And I think the other reason is that he showed up at a charity thing with Sam Champion, who was then the local weatherman for a local ABC station here in New York, who then eventually became the weatherman for Good Morning America, and he's not doing that anymore now. The Sam Champion is openly gay. And so people say, oh, and they posed for a picture together at this charity event. So people will assume that Mike Piazza was a homosexual. And you always used to dye every winter. He would dye his hair blonde. So people said, oh, because he's dyeing his hair blonde, it was sort of with Sam Champion and the charity event was gay. So if Yankee fans could say that Mike Piazza was gay, I, as a Met fan, could say that Derek Jeter was gay, even though he's married to a swimsuit model who appeared on the cover a couple of times with Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. I forgot her name. I said, Hannah Davis, I think her name was. He married her. I think they just had a first kid last summer when Jeter's number was formally retired, and so if Yankee fans could say Piazza is gay, I can say that Derek Jeter is gay. I believe fair is fair. Yeah, give and take is take. So that's how I feel about that. And Jeter is probably going to be the next guy to get 100% on the ballot. We didn't tick off anybody. But the problem is with Derek Jeter. Well, I know I didn't focus that much on Rivera, but Rivera would be the first guy who elected to the Hall of Fame who the majority of his games was only one inning. I know he pitched more than one inning, and some of his saves. Sometimes he would pitch two innings for not only his saves in the regular season, but mostly in the playoffs and World Series, he pitched more than 2 innings. And true, he mostly pitched 1 inning, and because of that, I don't think he should have gotten 100% on the ballot for being a 1 inning pitcher. For most of his career, he was a 1 inning pitcher. You can say, what about Eckersley? Well, he's Eckersley for the first half of his career, before he became a relief pitcher with Oakland. He was a starting pitcher. He was a pretty damn good one. He wasn't the greatest starting pitcher in the world, but he had a pretty damn good career until he became a relief pitcher as a starter. Not the greatest career, but better than average. He even threw a no-hitter one year. In 1977, he actually threw a no-hitter when Eckersley was pitching for Cleveland. He threw a no-hitter one year. And then when he became the ace reliever for Oakland, that's when he established the 1 inning reliever bit. But with Jeter, during his whole career, he wasn't the number 1 shortstop in the American League. He wasn't. True, he has a .310 lifetime batting average, which is true, because he did play at least 150 to 160 games a year, but he wasn't the type of player that Cal Ripken was. To me, Cal Ripken was the best shortstop in my lifetime in the American League. No question about it. Even though later on in his career, especially when Jeter first came up, Jeter had to compete with Ripken, was still a shortstop at that time. I think by the next year or 2 years later, in 97, 98, and Ripken switched over to third base towards the end of his career. The last 4 or 5 years of his career, he became mostly a third baseman. But most of his career, Ripken was a shortstop. For at least 10 to 15 years, he was a shortstop for 15 years. So, to say that Ripken is better, that the Jeter is better than Ripken, no way. Ripken had more power. And he had more home runs than Jeter has. At least he didn't hit everything to right field, which Jeter did. The majority of his home runs went to right field, and that's why when they built the new Yankee Stadium, it was shorter in right field, so it would be easier for Jeter to hit home runs. Like they did the original Yankee Stadium in the middle for Babe Ruth, 296 feet, for Babe Ruth, make it easier for Babe Ruth to hit home runs, but Babe Ruth could hit home runs off anywhere. But it made it easier for Babe Ruth to hit home runs. That's what they did with Jeter too. They made it easier for him to hit home runs out of the new Yankee Stadium. They opened up in 2009. But Jeter was never the number one shortstop in the league. He wasn't. Not only did he had to compete with an aging Cal Ripken, but he also had Nomar Garciaparra, who was a damn good shortstop, and he should have gotten I think that his injuries is what caused Garciaparra getting into the Hall of Fame, but I believe that he should have gotten in. Garciaparra. Or Nomar. Nomar should have gotten in. But Jeter was never the number one shortstop. Not only did he had to compete against Nomar, but he also had to compete against Alex Rodriguez. Even though A-Rod is never going to get in the Hall of Fame because of the steroid stuff, but he should have. He was a better player than Jeter was. He was a better all-around player before, during, and after the steroid scandal with A-Rod. He was a better all-around. He was, even with the steroids, he was still a better all-around shortstop than Jeter was. And not only that, but Jeter was one of the most selfish, if not the most selfish ball player ever. Because when the Yankees signed A-Rod, or got A-Rod from the Rangers, Texas Rangers, if Jeter was a real captain of the Yankees, he would have moved over to third base and let A-Rod play short, so he could break Cal Ripken's home run rate. I think he was like 1 or 2 home runs behind Ripken for the most home runs by a shortstop. And he never got a chance to break that, and A-Rod never got a chance to break that record, steroids or not, because of Derek Jeter's refusal to move over to third base. When A-Rod came to the Yankees, started playing for the Yankees. That's what I mean, that he was a selfish, homosexual player. Jeter is. No question about it. No question about it. With him being a selfish, greedy player. Jeter never even played 162 games in a season like Ripken did. Ripken played every game for 16 years. Jeter didn't even play 162 games once. And then the closest he ever got was 160 or 161 games. But he never played all 162 games in one season. So he's ready to say how great Jeter is. No way he should get 100% in the ballot. No way. And Rivera shouldn't get 100% of the ballot. It's a Babe Ruth. The players I mentioned already: Ruth, Gehrig, Chrissy Mathewson, Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, even Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, even Nolan Ryan, Steve Carlton, and Tom Seaver. All those guys I mentioned. Plus, I should mention Stan Musial. Stan Musial, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle. Those guys should have gotten 100% of the ballot before Rivera did. That is a disgrace. Those guys should have gotten 100% of the ballot before Rivera was in diapers. I mean, that to me, that itself is a joke. They should have gotten 100% of the ballot. I know I'm running along, it's over 3-4 minutes already, but this is always a good topic for me to do a video on. But I'm urging sports writers, do not make Jeter 100% of the ballot. I don't have a problem with Rivera or Jeter getting in the Hall of Fame, even though I don't like them because they were Yankees. But because of that, I don't feel they don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. They do deserve it, but not getting 100% of the ballot. Don't deserve it. There's other players they just mentioned. They deserve to be 100%. Not Derek Jeter and Rivera. So that's my review of the 2019 Baseball Hall of Fame class. Please click on the video. Please read it. Please subscribe to my channel. Please forward this video on your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews and all on my YouTube channel. But RallyC.com, that's all with WDY. C.com, there's a homepage and a rally reviewer, Chris Lee Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.